Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast where comedians explain why they'd rather tell jokes than talk about their feelings. Every episode I sit down with comedians, writers and the professionally unserious to ask what comedy means to them. No big statements, just comedy, perspective and at least one moment that should have stayed off mic. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 2,000 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is a wildly energetic Australian stand-up comedian, improviser, streamer, and creator, whose work blurs the lines between stand-up theatre and interactive performance. For over 20 years, he's been a fixture on global comedy stages, selling out shows and topping best-reviewed lists at the Edinburgh Fringe. He's the creator of cult favourite The Dark Room, a live-action video game comedy experience that's toured festivals, clubs and conventions worldwide, where he's known for high-octane crowd work, fearless improv, pop culture riffs and a brilliant blend of stand-up and chaos. It's comedian John Robertson. Do you remember growing up and comedy being a big influence on you back then?
Yeah. Every member of the family liked comedy. They didn't say stand up. Stand up wasn't a thing that you went to see live necessarily. It was a thing that happened on the television. And you know, they just say the names of people who did it.
Yeah.
But we had three different generations in the family who all liked comedy, but they all liked different things. So like my mother's parents really liked sort of like wartime British comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very excited by that. And then her cousin and her husband really liked alternative comedy and knew what was going on. And they knew some comics in Sydney, and you know, they were very au fait with things. And then my parents liked a sort of odd combination of the two. So like my sort of comedy diet growing up, like in the house, was a weird combination of family-friendly Australian comedy from the 80s and the 90s, which of course would be a hate crime. You know, they're just not swearing. It doesn't mean it's not the most abusive shit you've ever seen in your life. And then I have a really fond memory of my father being like, "Oh, John, I don't think I'd be very popular with your mother if we brought home this Monty Python tape." And I think she indicated to him that she didn't really mind, and so somehow that arrived, and that kind of changed everything, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely a lot of different voices. And once I was old enough to get into what Mum's cousin was watching. That was good. That was when I was finally able to not just have the living shit kicked out of me at school, because if everyone's walking around and kind of armed with the word cunt, really, and kind of armed with a sort of more guttural, telling domestic violence jokes to each other that they've gotten out of the same crap joke book that everyone's dad had, because everyone's dad was shit except mine. Mine was great. And you're there going, "Oh, well, wibbity wobbity, pardon me, matron." You've read, I was always like sitting in the back of class reading like the Fawlty Towers script book or a Monty Python annual or something. And curiously in rural Western Australia, there's sort of, what's he saying? Oh, I don't know, gibberish. Well, beat him until such a time as it makes sense. So it was once I hit the kind of the artists who were either taking heroin or were talking about it. I had something I could converse with these people with. Also, when I finally just kind of loosened up a bit and just learned to swear, it's a good language. If you want to explain like an idea quickly and effectively in a base way.
Yeah.
Not just to the terminally stupid like my classmates were, is there anything in the world dumber than a pack of 12-year-old boys? Lord of the Flies would say no. Right. But it's a good way of conveying an idea evocatively to everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was kind of it. Somewhere like yeah, I needed to find the charm in the actual surroundings I had.
Mm.
And also stay true to the things my family liked because they were all good.
Mm.
Like there was never anything that my grandparents, sitting down going, all right, we're going to watch Eric Sykes in The Plank,
Mm.
right? Or we're going to watch some Laurel and Hardy. That shit's amazing. It's so funny.
Yeah.
To the point that if anyone feels moved and goes, "Oh, I'll Google Eric Sykes The Plank," it's like, yeah, make certain it's the black and white one, not the one in color with Tommy Cooper.
Mm.
That's really weird. That's weirdly self-referential and not funny. You want the one that came on VHS with Rhubarb, which my grandparents were always trying to turn off before it came on the tape because they didn't like it as much. Yeah.
So were those kind of influences the sort of thing, those things that you were seeing on the television, were they influential on you wanting to be a performer, wanting to do comedy for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday because I normally think that I didn't particularly want to be a stand-up, and then that idea came later on. It
Mm.
was other people telling me that I should, and specifically my best friend when I was at uni, who's a very pretty girl I wanted to impress. And over the course of interviews over the years, you can see how well she and I were getting on because in other interviews, I've either referred to that as I wanted to fuck her or I wanted to screw her, which probably speaks to we were probably arguing at the time, you know. Um, but yeah, uh, it was something I always looked at and went, no, that would be good to do.
Mm.
It seemed like magic that occurred in a faraway place. And even the stuff that I don't know, the stuff that was positioned as being really attractive that happened live,
Mm.
that was still somehow a thing that happened a million years removed from you. Like probably the first thing that would be equated to stand up that I saw live was Barry Humphries
Mm.
doing a cabaret.
Yeah.
And, like cabaret in the surroundings I was in, I recognized this word my mother was saying all the time. She quite liked these cabarets. She was a big fan of, she liked, she liked Dame Edna and she liked a guy called Reg Livermore. And,
Mhm.
I didn't realize that, these were people who had a very, very long career, sometimes doing really interesting shit.
Yeah.
Like Reg Livermore's a gender-bending cabaret supremo from Sydney.
Mhm.
When I finally saw him on video, I was like, oh no, there's thousands of people in that crowd.
Yeah.
You know, although I would just say noticeably not for all of them. The ones in the 70s are really, really big. And then the VHS in the 90s, I was like, no, we went to that theater once. That seats 100. He's in a black box. Which was kind of nice because I'm like, yeah, good. That comes for all of us. That's great, mate. Yeah. Yeah, there's like all this stuff, but it's like, Mum's saying cabaret. I didn't even recognize the word when I saw it written down. Cabaret I thought was a different thing. And I saw this and I went, all right, that's good. I don't know how you do that.
Mm.
I suppose I would like to.
Yeah.
And then I considered the idea shameful on some level. I don't know why I did that particularly. And I insisted that I wanted to go into law. I was very fixated on this idea of money. Like I was going to go and get money. And the way you got money was the law. Except weirdly, the version of law I was thinking of was I was going to be a barrister, which of course is public speaking with great authority, and at no point did I ever look up or enroll in any course that had anything to do with law. And when we knew people whose fathers were lawyers, I never spoke to them about it and had in fact no interest. So despite this stated ambition, other people more correctly, like noticeably an English teacher of mine and my mother, went, oh yeah, by the time he goes to uni, he might want to go to this particular university and he might want to do their communications degree, which is very good, right? So off I went to do that. And then on the first day of uni, it crystallized as my best friend Mel met me in a line and went, oh, your name's John and you're very loud. She used to see me see me around, and yeah, she entered me in my first open mic competition, and that was when I in the first 4 seconds of that show, that was when I discovered, oh, all right, everything I'd ever thought about this is wrong. That was good. I thought stand up was, a thing done by a guy in a dress, and he was a bit rude, and then he sang, and then you're sitting there going, I'm watching this MC, and I'm like, well, this guy's just telling joke books from the same crap joke book everyone's dad has, but that seems to work. That's upsetting. And then I remember the first guy who got on, and this is when I realized that it would start a love-hate relationship with stand-up. This guy comes on, the first thing he does is, hey, the sound guy's got a laptop. You want to stop wanking, mate? Yeah, two shakes is a wank. And I was like, my God, I've just heard a grown man accuse another man of wanking via a microphone. Like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, And then I got up and did an 8.5 minute improvised monologue about getting the shit kicked out of me at school, in a strident nasal British accent for some fucking reason. And the thing is, it worked because it was a 5 minute thing, and setting a thing that would be a big part of my life for years. First gig fucking overran. Overran. I mean, you asked one question. What was that, 10 minutes ago? Like that fucking overran. I remember the MC. That was it. I think he said something. Oh, he yelled time at me, and I was 17. And I just yelled back, "What time? A good time? I'm having a good time," and then just continued on, which was lots of fun. And then I had the audacity to feel aggrieved when I didn't win. Can you, isn't that good? You're 17, you've never seen the art form live, you don't know what it is. You go on stage and do what is transparently, like, the section of it where it was stand up was I was facing in their direction, and I was improvising, but I was improvising to a fourth wall. And the only thing that really would be useful later was that's actually not a bad response to a man yelling a word. That's actually not a bad little riff, to continue on. The rest of it completely useless, but yeah, you get up for the first time, completely overrun, think you've mastered the art form, and then don't get sent to the next heat of a national competition. Sparking a 5-year vendetta between me and life. Yeah. Fortunately, I was 17 and a bit shy, so no one noticed. So that's all right.
So you start out with this open mic, and then, like you said, it wasn't at all what you thought it was. So what were the big surprises from that gig on? What surprised you most about starting doing comedy?
Oh, I mean, that it was shit. That was a big surprise. Like, it was happening mostly in little places.
Yeah.
Like when I started, like, trying in earnest, what I didn't realize was this was a famous open mic competition, and it was getting lots of people, right? Whereas if you were going to go and do open mic, where that happened in my town, there were 2 comedy clubs. They ran on a Wednesday and a Thursday. I'm deeply indebted to both of them, but specifically the Laugh Resort, because Diana, who ran that, Diana Starr, she saw me not in a play, at a play. She saw me in the audience at a play, and she'd been at the gig, right? And she went, "Oh, you're funny. You should come be at my club." And I, for about 3 years, disproved that statement every time. Every time I got up. I don't know if there was a single bloody hurdle, untripped over in that woman's club. But where they would do the open mic is they would do it after the main show, which is not a bad place to put it, really, but also a good exercise in misery, because an audience that might have been 100 people, it might have been 120, it might have been 50, it might have been 30, dematerializes to becoming 11, which is a combination of sickos and people with nowhere else to go and whatever friends you've brought with you
Mm.
who have just sat through an evening that maybe they weren't so interested in. Because like all of my friends were like suburban anime fans, you know, like we're talking about nice queer kids from the suburbs
Mm.
sitting down and going, oh, I don't know, just that's been three grown men in a row, just all very divorced. Which isn't that fair to everyone who was running around at the time. There was a bunch of very, very interesting comics, all of whom had come from an acting background. So their act outs and their ideas, there'd be these moments where you could sit there and you could go, "Hey, he's doing Brecht. Brecht's happening. He's just also singing a song about how everyone from this suburb's a cunt, but he's doing Brecht, you know." So that was nice. So that was audience discovering, of course, that the audience were there.
Yeah.
That the audience actually weren't immediately charmed by whatever a sort of I wouldn't say loutish, because loutishness came later and was a very good way of communicating. Once again, force, as it turns out, will really get some ideas across. You actually want people to listen to you. Have you thought about being impressive in some way? That really does it. But yeah, the discovery that it's not like in films where, because people go, "Oh no, you're gonna get heckled or whatever." It's like, well, that's actually incredibly rare.
Mm.
And but by that point, to be fair, like the blood would already have had to have been in the water before one of the sharks would bother opening its mouth. So. So there was definitely that. I remember the first time a guy didn't like what I'd said, and told me afterwards, and that was interesting. I apparently remember it falsely, and I have to acknowledge that, because I have a lot of memories that involve the phrase "grabbed me and thumped me into a wall," and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, they can't all have done that. Like it can't have been everyone. Not everyone I've ever had a disagreement with has grabbed me by the lapels, given I don't wear lapels that often, right? And smashed me into a wall. But I assert that a guy, I think I had some pun about cancer or something, and I was doing that very, very well. I mean, you see it everywhere now, but at the time it was just a thing teenagers were doing, where you're saying a naughty word, saying a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? Which was a fairly tiresome exercise that I think by the time I was 28, I got out of it. Like, oh, if I'm gonna talk about things in an evocative and powerful way, they should probably be things I fucking know something about, and not not just a sort of collection of words I've seen that bother people a bit. But yeah, I remember this guy going, "You suck, cancer isn't funny." And in my recollection, he thumps me into the wall.
Hmm.
But my friend Mel was there, and she was like, "No, no, I know that guy. He just said that to you and walked off." And I'm like, all right, fine. Okay, all right, fine. Perhaps the wall was completely untouched by me. Maybe it's more of an emotional impact of what he said to me. Surely I would be the real victim here. This man clearly having had to deal with someone dying of some awful disease, and then coming out for an evening of stand-up comedy in a town not famed for stand-up comedy, staying through to the end because someone he knows his friend is getting on, and then going, "Well, this is the worst shit imaginable." So, I have great sympathy for that man, and whether or not he attacked me, which who's to say? Apparently, I wasn't there. Who knows?
This thing you said there, the idea of communicating by force. When you're on stage, you have, whether you're doing darkroom or whether you're doing like a club stand-up set, you have this high energy improv, what I've seen called insult comedy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
was that something that you knew? Because you said your first set was improvised. Is this something you knew from the beginning that that's the comedian you wanted to be?
No, it was well, actually, no. I shouldn't immediately refute you. The reason I jumped in like that is because it is what I wanted to do. It's what I thought it was.
Right.
It's what I believed stand up was. I thought stand up was a thing where people got up and they improvised what they were saying and they said a
Mm.
different thing every single night. And I rapidly discovered that that is not true. And it doesn't really matter who you're watching and what they claim to do. It isn't true. Some people riff more,
Mm.
right? Some people it's their whole brand. Some people are scatterbrained. Sometimes there are different things. But, you know, that people improvise along themes they know and they go in and out of things that they've got set. Like
Mm.
Ross Noble, I mean, I got a friend in Australia who he came up to me a few years ago and he went, "My God, John, I remember the day you told me Ross Noble doesn't improvise everything, and I was so angry with you. I was so angry." And then I went to see him and I went, "Oh, it's so obvious." Oh, and it is because it's like, yes, well, not everything organically concludes with a monkey masturbating.
Not
Like,
always. Not
oh,
always.
well, that's it. It's like, oh, he seems to keep walking back to that bit of stage where they've got a bit of set and he's doing this thing. And in fact, actually, it seems to refer to the title of the show. Oh, do you reckon he's just coming up with it? But like, it's what I passionately believed, and then I tried. And then the other thing that I thought, because I learnt the lesson about force quite early on, because once I'd done my second gig and I'd come on stage and I had like a duck clock, right, that I wanted to look at because I wanted to not do over 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
And it was just a sort of classic bit of overthinking. And at no point did anything I say depart the fourth wall. I could have been alone, just a gruesome, unpleasant death, where you're just a sort of theatrical child with a stupid clock.
Mm.
I then went away and I went, all right, well, I hated that and I hate people now. I'm very upset. Um, like one thing I don't lack for is I don't lack for the idea of my own importance in the lives of other people. So I don't like, whereas someone else could go, okay, those 12 people didn't enjoy this unit of entertainment that you were attempting to do, but at least they understood you were just attempting.
Mm.
I somehow translated that as everything I've ever done is wrong. Um, the way I present myself on stage is wrong. I simply cannot be me on stage. And so I invented a very, very short-lived character whose name is a testament to what 17-year-old edgelords find funny. So Father Clancy Auschwitz, the gay Baptist minister, was created, who was forever like I don't mention this to people it that often. I've mentioned Father Clancy on a few podcasts. There's a detail about him I don't mention that often, which is that I had a bit where he would crucify himself, and I would accomplish this miracle by nailing my shoe to the floor, and I would, and people just let me do this. I had a hammer, I had a nail, I nailed my shoe to the floor. I did this a bunch of times. People just let it happen. I would walk off stage and the shoe would be stuck to the stage. People let it happen. And it's only now that I'm like, oh shit, Ian Cognito did that bit, but it was funny and good. God damn. Because he did it with his jacket. Yeah, I don't think there's, and people tell that story legendarily. I don't think anyone in Perth is going, hey, remember how good it was when John would ruin the stage? Oh, didn't we all laugh? The way that he would like I was ruining this plank of wood that we had to use every week, that club. But also in such a way that the audience couldn't see what I had done. It was only the people in the front row who even knew. Other people are just watching a short child kneel and then seeing a hammer go down and nothing much.
Yeah, yeah.
But the triumphs of Father Clancy's career were few and far between. He it was good because that was the first time I knew I could do it without the microphone.
Mm.
I did once kick the microphone off stage, which was a you know what? People are just really good because I know that if I owned equipment and someone had done that to my equipment, the conversation they and I would have afterwards would be lengthy and devastating. But I was surrounded by people who were genuinely encouraging and were like, well, like he's just trying. You can tell this boy doesn't mean any harm. Like his heart's in the right place. He's just learning. So they let me learn,
Yeah.
which was a really nice thing to do. Great freedom. We did a Christmas show once. They put Father Clancy on. And the gimmick with Father Clancy was that he was an intolerant Baptist minister and he would remember he was gay and then cry, which isn't a bad. So it was taken correctly and seen as subversive, which is what it should have been. But also, like, it was a thing where, like, if I'd known anyone cynical, they could have taken a drag on a cigarette and gone, my God, John, if this was Cambridge in the 60s, that'd really be doing it. Like, oh, yes, if you were, my God, if only it was 1985 and you were on at the original Comedy Store, I'm sure this would have relevance somewhere. But we did this Christmas show, and in the Christmas show, I have a fond memory of lobbing the baby Jesus underhand into the crowd and watching it fly up, hit the disco ball at the back, and then just hit a bloke in the head, which is pretty good. And I gave out all these presents, right? And people opened them in the interval, and all of the presents were transparent video cases filled with offal that I'd gone and gotten from the local butcher, and that was just great. Just a really, really good thing to do. Yeah, I unfortunately I'd nicked that idea. There was a much more effective version of that was going around. My mate Grug was in a band. Grug, I think, is still out there. I think he might still be called Grug. He used to sit behind me at the local anime club dressed as a monk, with a big beard, but like dressed, like Friar Tuck, and was frightening as fuck, just by existing. But he was the mascot for a band called the Fascist Fair Go Party, and they'd taken their name. Well, that's from Ben Elton's Stark. So they were doing anti-Nazi shit, but you've also got to understand this anti-Nazi shit that they were doing and I was doing was at a time when we thought we wouldn't have to hear from those cunts again.
Yeah.
We were doing our satire while dancing on the grave. We didn't realize that there'd actually been a tunnel under there, and it didn't go to Argentina. It went to social media. Anyway, Grug would come on stage. This is what I'd been told. And I just think it's fantastic. Grug would come on stage. This band would be playing, and you've got this monk walks on stage with a squeeze box playing Out of Time and a different song, right? But his cheeks are full of something, right? And then everyone would stop and look, and he would punch himself in the face like John Belushi in Animal House. And custard and sheep's eyes would fly into the crowd. So pussy eyeballs. And I was never able to find a butcher that would get me eyes, which is what I wanted. And as I look back on all of this, because I got a lot of friends who started around the same time as me or shortly thereafter, and they went straight to commercial success, And I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, well, they probably wrote jokes. But how long were they spending at the butcher's trying to be like, what's the funniest tendon you've got?
I love this idea of thinking about the law. The law, of course, being about only obeying rules.
Yeah.
And then thinking, no, the other side of that is absolute freedom to do anything that you want and people letting you do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, noticeably, because there were two comedy clubs. You couldn't be on the Thursday night club if you didn't do well at the Wednesday club, and it took 7 years to get on at the Thursday club. And by the time I'd gotten on there, I'd in an effort to communicate, I'd just become a sort of like rugby lout. I became a club comic. I was probably never a more effective rural Australian club comic than I was. And it was funny because they originally didn't want me because I was too weird, and then they didn't want me because I was just a rude boy, you know. But we eventually got there. Like it took a long journey to be able to finally do the things that I'd always wanted to do. Yeah, which is nice. It also turns out like a thing that my now ex-wife said, which was incredibly important, where she was like, "Well, you might want to look like you're enjoying yourself. You might want to find some degree of joy in what you're doing, because what's happening is a very, very stressed, miserable man is getting up on the stage and clearly, fighting with this appalling task that he's been given. And there's no, I do not have a great poker face. If I don't want to be somewhere, it's very fucking obvious. So yeah. So find some love of it.
Yeah.
In the end, all I probably wanted was attention. It didn't really matter. Like, I wanted to be a barrister because barristers stood up and they said clever things and people paid attention to them.
Yeah.
And then there is a way of standing up and actually saying less clever things and having people pay attention to you. And that's where I am, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who's run into me in the last few days has had to sit through the fact that I'm tremendously proud of what I just did to the nice people at the Eric Morecambe Centre in Harpenden, because that must be I don't know what size venue that is, which is a bit of a bugger because I'm playing it in a minute. But I went out, the acoustics were really good, and I like it when a big full theatre, when the acoustics are so good that we can do the bit where we move the mic away, and I just use that nice theatre training I had and just scream. Right. Lovely thing to do. But what had really made me happy about it was having done that and hearing my voice booming off the walls and like, oh, good shit, was two things in a row, right? One of which is irretrievably stupid, and then the other was just a deliberate thing to do to them. And because we're at the Eric Morecambe Centre, right? So I've just screamed, what a pleasure it is to be here at the most fertile venue of all, the Eric Morecambe Centre. Oh, and then because the crowd have just kind of go, oh, and I've just go, oh, shut up, you people. I never watched the two Ronnies. And then they just went, they were so happy. They were very, very pleased. And then, at some point I went, you fucking people, I'm going to go home and count my 4 candles. And they, it would have been so nice to have been able to remember a single thing from Morecambe and Wise just to say at the end, but it was lovely.
On that point then.
Yes.
Without referring to like a Baptist minister character, for example, but when it's John Robertson on stage, who is that person on stage? How much of that is you, and how much of that is an inflation of you, a character, a version of you?
Well, I mean, I had this conversation with one of the kids at Top Secret Comedy in London the other day, because I hadn't played there in about 10 years, and I came in, just did 3 gigs in a row, which was very nice. It was a nice. Just how these things happen. Even the head booker came down and went, "Why has it been so long?" I was like, I don't know. It's just what it is. But what happened was the tech guy, because I'd come in and said, "Oh, hello. My name's John. Give us the light at 8, would you? Thank you. Or there's a good chap. All right, I'll see you in a minute." And then I've gone out and screamed, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, yeah, no, that's so funny. You were really shy beforehand, and then you went on stage and did that." And I went, "Yeah, it used to be the other way around, but people found that really tiresome." Which is correct. Like I had a period where, when I was starting to do wild man shit on stage, I just sort of, kind of endless manic phase, did that all the time, right? And as it turns out, if you limit your mania and the things that you enjoy to not necessarily moderation, but if you allow yourself downtime, you can be more effectively manic in quick bursts. So like I talk to people and they're like, like, my God, that thing is like, yeah, but that guy's designed to last for 20 minutes, or like an hour or, 2 hours with a break,
Yeah.
right? You can't be that constantly, right? You could be excitable, you could do all sorts of things, but the way I think of my stand-up persona, especially recently, is he is a man who has just arrived. That would be the nature of that character. He is a man who has just arrived wherever we are via a bolt of lightning or some mysterious. He has possibly slept in a ditch. He is very impressed by all the things around him and deeply inconvenienced simultaneously. So that's what's going on. Like he's a man who wants to tell you that he loves everything he sees, but also what a shabby, dirty, unpleasant world we're in, and what a pity we all have to be here, you know. And also he has a sense of morals, which I find out later. Like I don't like he finds like he lives in a world in which all women are very beautiful and talented, and if they've come along with some partner, the partner is some fucking gutter dragging slob, you know, who and he can't believe, that these nice people have to put up with this shambling shit dick next to them, and all of that, and also like what one thing that surprised me, because it happened with Darkroom as well, and the stand-up persona, is that Darkroom, I think, is canonically gay, as a character. Like, I mean, he's not even a human. He's a conflagration of of various things, whether he's a supernatural force or a bunch of electricity and bits and bobs, or somewhere between the two. Whereas Mr. John Robertson is a sort of I don't know, like freewheeling, dick swinging bisexual, but is also probably likely to fuck an empty chair. you know. Yeah. So I mean that's it. Like, yeah, the way that I play it is, man, yeah, a man who has just arrived talks. Also, it's a thing. It was a way of coming around to a thing my grandmother had said, because my grandmother was kind of aware that my sort of cod Monty Python shit wasn't really working. She didn't know about necessarily on stage. I think she just meant she was finding it annoying in the house. But she was the one who went, people like comedy that's about them, right? And I don't know, like I don't know about everyone in the world, right? I don't know specifics about everyone in the world, but I do know some generalities that affect all of us. And the generalities that affect all of us tend to be things we can all see,
Yeah.
you know, things that are there, like the raw pleasure of, like, if you go to do a small town and you get off at the train station and you walk into town, not in a cowboy-esque way, but you're just walking to town and you look at some stuff on the way. And then you get on stage and you go, my God, I saw this, I saw that. And you just see people go, that is there. That is there. And they're very happy about that. And I'd much rather do that than work in, sort of unpleasant stereotypes, big fat generalities. It's much more meant to be a thing of, it's like, look, we're all here and we're all people, and isn't this a bit shit? But fun though, isn't it? So that's the object of the exercise anyway. Yeah. Occasionally I do tend to as well. Like it's a bit of a bugger. The downside of doing stuff that's in the moment, is if you do say something that even if it doesn't matter if it didn't work, there's stuff that I'll say where I go, oh fuck, oh god damn, like I regret that, like, oh, and this happens all the time, and like you wake up like a car accident, just fuck, So yeah, I'm currently having that at the moment
Mm.
where there was a guy who I didn't go him too hard, but it was just a thing where I was like, nah, all right. I worked in some territory there I wouldn't normally.
Mm.
He was very pleased, and so were the people around him. But fuck it, hell, it's just one of those. Also, just thinking of power, and like I don't know, like rhythm. Right.
Mm.
I love rhythm. I love things that are just happening.
Mm.
Right. Like I've just gone and watched a really good night of comedy. Like a really good night. Like I've seen in the last few days incredibly talented people and doing the thing where, once they're on, you are now in their world.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that was Reg D. Hunter with that big lugubrious voice,
Mhm.
and he's just like immediately you're like, okay, well, whatever's happening, we're all going to look at it.
Yeah.
We're all this is going to be a defined comic voice, and Samira Banks, who's a great defined comic voice, and Thomas Green,
Mhm.
like all these people, really, really good. When I got up, um, this was the thing where I was like, I didn't feel bad about this, but I was like, this is so stupid, but it's also what I believe in, which is I've pointed at a man, and a man of great dignity in the front row, and I've just gone, I love this man. Now that's normally me buying time to think, like it's I've noticed you've existed. I'm complimenting you, and I'm either about to compliment you out the wazoo, or I'm going to say something very hurtful, right? Okay. And I went, I love this man. And the guy went, I love this man. Yeah, he pointed at himself, right? And then I just leant over him and screamed, then let's go outside and fuck this man, right? And it got an applause break. And I was like, that was completely unearned. My God. But what it was people going, oh, joy. We're doing joy now.
Mhm.
Like, yes,
Yeah.
that's it. Just like, the rhythm of something, and it's not that it's transgressive, but there's no boundary. And people just go, So that was good. But I was also a bit like, I wish occasionally it would be nice to have like a couple of really good jokes. Just a really, really nice, finely crafted, not and just let that go
Yeah.
and be happy with an audience all tittering for a while. That would be quite good. Perhaps something where I could go and get a glass of water. That would be nice. As distinct from going, oh, good, and then you just said you'd fuck the man. Did I ever? But at the same time, what a luxury to have the emotion of people are applauding, and you're there going, oh well, thoroughly unearned. It's like, well, I also know what the opposite of that is, where you say you want to fuck someone in the front row, and everyone looks at you like, why? What's wrong with you? God, fuck. We also wish you had some finely crafted jokes. Fucking hell.
Well, talking about watching comedy, then some of those people
Yeah,
that you've
yeah.
named there just now,
Mm.
you are clearly, obviously able to watch comedy, but do you watch it the same way? Are you more entertained by sort of cerebral, intelligent writing or the playfulness of it? Can you just absorb that and let it wash over you, or do you watch things sort of analytically now and sort of say, I understand what you did there, or I would do this differently?
I try not to like. I try not if I'm at a club.
Mm.
Really, the degree of analysis is, have I been on yet? Right. Because what I want to do is I kind of maybe if there's something so important that's going on, then I want to know what's happening. Like I want to know what's in there.
Mm.
But mostly like if I show up, a lot of what I like to do is I'll pop my head in, and if someone's just doing very, very well, I go, okay, well, good. They're doing very, very well. I've got to go, shit myself, frankly. I've got to go. I've got to go. I've got to concern myself with also going and doing very, very well. So I'm not going to, you know, I don't stand at the back going, oh, what an interesting bon mot. I could really punch that up. I just sort of go, oh yeah, that's good. Oh, there's someone making a noise over there. All right, well, in an hour we'll see if they're still doing that.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Um, I try not to. I like to if people are doing jokes or a story or something, I like to I like to allow myself to go along with it. I want to be tricked. I want to be brought in.
Mm.
Like Adam Bloom, the comic and the writer of a book about how to do stand up.
Hmm.
Adam, when trying to tell you a joke in person, will reach out and grab your wrist halfway through the joke and go, "Are you ahead of me on this?" And I can't live in a world in which I would be. I sort of like, no, I'm not actually trying to figure out, but he might be unconsciously when you start talking, trying to figure out the path.
Mm.
Because he does sometimes he'll laugh and then be like, ah, yes, yes. And then he gives you the version that he'd thought of while you were talking, which is pretty good. They tend to sometimes they're a lot better than what you were saying, which is very annoying. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'll analyze things sometimes. So I don't know. Certainly when it when other people's work mattered more to me, when I was in smaller scenes that were more competitive, like that's when that shit really matters. But it's like what like I've got a memory of being in a car and having like an agonizingly long conversation with a guy because he was talking about another act, and I went, and he's going, no, no, they're great, and I went, no, no, they're effective,
Mm.
like because I was being quite polite, but I'm just like, no, no, they're doing some hack shit. Like this is very well known tricks. This isn't really anything.
Mm.
And they went, oh no, but John, but they get laughs, and it's like that would be the basic nature of the task,
Mm. Yeah.
That would be the object of the exercise,
Mm.
and it's about how you do that. Right? Now, going out and being effective, what the fuck's wrong with that? You know, sometimes that's all I have, and sometimes I don't even have that, Sometimes I come out and go, here's everything I've ever known that seems to me to be the most direct way of doing this, and it's wrong. Poor old Gary Delaney's audience. They were, God, you could tell they wanted to hear a well-crafted one-liner. Oh my God. It was the looks of pity that drove it home. They weren't, this was quite recent. They weren't unhappy. They were just completely baffled. And it was perfect. It was like me going to see stand-up for the first time. They were going, is this allowed? Is this what it is? Like, will Gary also be jumping off stage? And if so, why? It's not really adding to the sum of parts here, like what is going on? Yeah, no, so I don't analyze too much. There will be stuff where I go, oh, I like that because I haven't seen that before. Or like I like things because they really, really resonate. Or I tend to be a big old slut for things where I go, touch of the cabaret about it. Good. But only a touch of the cabaret. I love like every single alternative cabaret gig I've done has been wonderful, and I've had a great time with some of the finest performers I've ever seen to a hugely appreciative audience. And I'll tell you, once you've gotten that 30 quid, you really, yeah.
Well, I can't talk to Mr. Darkroom without bringing the Darkroom up, obviously.
Oh, yes.
That would be remiss of me.
Yeah.
So from Twitch streaming to Comic Cons and arenas, this sort of gaming audience of young people they have these days. How does your stand-up audience, your club audience differ from your gamer audience? And how different are you, again, in that character for that audience?
Well, they just know different things.
Mm.
Like a stand-up crowd might know all manner of things, like maybe a stand-up crowd has a greater chance of knowing more about the football,
Not me.
Yeah, no, but this is what I mean. Like they might have a greater chance of knowing about their specialized interests, whereas a Comic-Con crowd, a gamer crowd, they'll know about a great swathe of things. And of course, they've got their own jokes. It's all kind of inbuilt in the culture.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily a matter of saying brand names that they enjoy, because like we've had it was quite cute. There was a mother whose children refused to come and see Darkroom because they were like, yes, we know it's about gaming, but it's the wrong kind of gaming, right? Which I enjoyed. But no, other than that, it's a very, very broad church. And it's just a very enthusiastic audience that is, well, I mean, obviously very, very attuned to the idea of playing games, and quite attuned as well to community and communal activity.
Mm.
So all of that is good. And then there's the part where like they're actually very, very diverse. So like the other night I was in this club and there was an Irish guy. He wasn't on stage, he was just in the crowd and he was just pissed out of his mind. And Samira Banks has a bit that begins with her saying, "Oh, I think diversity has gone too far." Now, bearing in mind, Samira Banks, her name is Samira, so there's a degree, as you can see, of nuance to what's being said here, And we watched as this guy went, "No, no, no, I think it has." When I was at school, we weren't allowed to bark at the two people who said they were cats, right? And this just went on for a while. And it was interesting because I thought, oh God, like, is this late night crowd, are they in some level on the side of this guy for what he's saying there? Are they going, my God, how outrageous, that there were these children and they thought they were cats, like all this shit. And Samira diffused him. And I came on and I just sort of said something about, and here's this, like, I don't entirely understand why we had to spend 15 minutes listening to this bloke fucking talking about bullying some furries. And when I said furries, the joint fucking lifted. I was like, oh, you do know. Oh, you know what those people are. That's a well-known subculture. And frankly, you were like, yeah, they're just neurodiverse kids playing. Fuck off. Leave them alone, So that's good. That's good, That was a nice moment where I went, our worlds are not so dissimilar here. Good. But yeah, that's the answer. A broad fucking church, many hats worn, many different sorts of people, but attuned to the idea of enjoying something and also underserved. Like gamers as an audience are incredibly catered to by media in general, not so much comedy. For whatever reason. Yeah. Even though it is an art form that by its nature would suggest fun. Here are the gamers, they probably like to enjoy themselves. Gosh, who knew? So that's the answer there. Yeah, and they're just good, and maybe they yell out at different times, and maybe they become excited by stupid ideas faster, as in like, we can build on that. We can all do something with that. The most creative chants I've ever heard from audiences were at gaming events, or from gamers. And yeah. And then also, like, I don't know, Darkroom's a thing where I used to think, oh, here's this niche thing that I've created. And then I had my former agent, Charlotte, years ago. She went, oh, no, this is for everybody, this thing you're doing. It really is. And yeah, so we get everybody in, which is really what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, is a nice sense of everybody. Because like when we say everybody, like, because people, when they get a bit of entertainment that's for them, feel very special and very, very, very good. But if you can have entertainment that is really catering for people, but a wide audience really enjoys it as well, right? That's just good for everybody.
Yeah.
That's a nice feeling, Yeah. And also, like, I get a bit, I'm going to use the example of anime here. Like, anime can be used as a term where people go, oh, I don't know anything about that. Or, oh, or it's seen as some sort of, like, if someone has an opinion on it, right, at all, like, in various bits of nerd culture, this can be the sign, that the most tiresome, beardy weirdy is coming, with the body pillow and the opinions about the women, and all of this. But also, it's just a thing that 15-year-olds like, like all of this. Or it's a billion-dollar industry spanning every fucking continent, right? That came out from another billion-dollar industry of manga, right? And has existed for the better part of a century, right? So, you've got all of that. So whenever someone's like, "Oh, that sounds really niche," it's like, I don't know. It sounds like probably about 100 million people might enjoy that. You know? Also the other thing with anime is like, as happened to me, as I think happens to everybody, people don't realize that they've consumed it.
Mm. Yeah.
Like my mother, like when she used to drive me to anime night, right? Where I go and have a lovely, hand holding time with some pretty young girls, and we all just went on our queer journey together. It was good, and we watched these cartoons. It was a really nice way of spending a Saturday evening. Like lovely thing to do, right? Mum used to watch Astro Boy. She would have watched the original in the 60s and then was excited when it came back in the 80s so I could watch it.
Yeah.
And at no point would she have gone, "My God, created by the god of manga, Osamu Tezuka." There you go. Then, well, that's why I think niche entertainment's for everybody. All right. Now, coprophilia. Everyone enjoys. Yeah.
Someone was saying to me they don't understand what anime is, and I said, "Well, you remember when we were growing up? You remember Battle of the Planets?" I said, "It's basically like that."
Yeah.
And hentai is them all fucking. Imagine that, and there you go.
You did it. You did it. That's all anyone needs to know.
Yeah. So what then so far, given The Dark Room, given John Robertson plays with his audience, and all the other many, many shows, what so far have been the worst and best experiences you've personally had through comedy?
Well, I mean, oh God. I mean, if you want to, like, it depends. Do you want the worst as in actually the worst, or do you just want like, oh, and here was a funny thing that happened that was a bit annoying?
Yeah, keep it light,
let's get yeah, right.
Unless you're going to cry, that would be great for ratings. But I've done,
you fucking coward. There are other emotions other than laughter and tears, but you fucking tell that to the people who write Edinburgh Fringe shows, right? Which also is a very unfortunate stereotype. I think the knowing wink to the 45-minute sad bit.
Yeah.
I think that was already a played out joke 10 years ago. Nevertheless, I mean, like the worst moment. I've got two that linger in the memory. One I'll tell you because it's contextual with what we've talked about. If you do manage to crawl, to like claw your way to the state finals of an open mic competition, yeah. I can strongly recommend make certain that the MC has the correct name for what you're about to do written down. And that if you are about to go on stage as yourself doing a series of puns, you do not, for instance, want to be brought on by the words, "Please welcome John Robertson as Father Clancy Auschwitz." That was a long journey to the microphone. Just a boy in street clothes, just walking towards a microphone as an audience, as one went, "Well, we've just heard the word Auschwitz, and we don't know why." So that was a learning experience there. Yep. And another one was I was doing I was doing a bit which I used to do, and it gradually became part of the intro for Darkroom. Where I would go on, it just used to be a bit where I would call out, like anyone here born in a decade, right? And I was told that what I was doing, this is an older act. He went, "Yeah, that's very, very good, but gradually, the more you do that, you're going to find your decade getting closer to the start." Right? Which of course happened. So I've been doing this bit where I call out the different generations when it used to start asking if people had been born in the 30s, right? And I was making fun of 90s kids. And now it starts in the 40s and there's almost never anybody, right? And, obviously it's the 2010s kids that we're going for. But I was doing I mustn't have been going great. I was doing this gig and I was really, the bit used to be really long and I was hammering the 90s kids. And I said something, I was like, you 90s kids, you don't know suffering, right? And it's meant, it's like it was probably meant to be like, I know what it was. It was like an intro to me talking about how shit VHS tapes were, right? Okay. And I just hear this kid just yell, I've got no arm, cunt. Yeah, there's a guy who had his arm ripped off. A shark, I think. So, I mean, that was a real, you know, we had to agree the conflict was over. You know, he only had one arm, but fuck it, had scored a punch. It was a hell of a thing. It was a real, it was, I've got no arm, cunt, was really just, that lingers in the mind. I took him for a drink afterwards. I thought he was great. We had a great chat, that kid and I. He also not only did he only have one arm, he was out celebrating because they'd released a single. He had a band.
Of course.
I presume he wasn't the guitarist. Right. But it had been played on the radio. It had been played on commercial radio a fair few times, and they were getting money from that. I didn't know that if you get your single, so not only had he been tremendously funny, he was having one of the best days of his life, and it was honestly a pleasure to participate in that in some small way. Yeah, I've got no arm, cunt. Yeah, yeah, weird. Hello.
What about the best so far?
Well, as for the best,
Or was that it?
oh fuck no, and that happens more often than you think. God, he's not special. No, no, I mean the best things like comedy brought me, it brought me my first wife, it brought me my partner now.
Mhm.
It's taken me to wonderful places. Like during Twitch, during Twitch, fuck, that's a Freudian slip. During lockdown,
Yes.
which I may as well have just called Twitch because it's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right. There's streaming. Like if it wasn't for Darkroom and Twitch and a huge amount of very, very supportive people, like we all held together during that pandemic, me and my crew, and we raised a lot of money for charity, and that was a fucking life-changing experience for me. I'd never thought that anything I did could have any actual social value in the sense that it did something genuinely good for people. It had certainly done good for me, and units of entertainment had been given out, but it was a really good thing to just do in general. So that there was that, and it's provided. Yeah, like it's just been like nourishing as fuck, honestly. Like I can have days where like even the worst day of working in comedy, right, is still better than any day really doing anything else. So like if I get up and I'm a bit depressed because like oh, okay, like say all right, I look at the diary and I go, all right, it's a few like rural shows or shows that are a long way away,
Mhm.
and maybe the money's not amazing, and I think for a second, oh God, is this it? And then it's like, yeah, well, it's the train's a beautifully meditative thing. You get on there, then you go do it. I like other comedians. I tend to anyway, so I enjoy the camaraderie of the green room. I enjoy being paid for 20 minutes of what could be described as not work. And then I leave, and while there will be moments sometimes where I go, oh, I wonder, like where's that going, or how much longer, or all of these things.
Yeah.
When I do tend to worry about things like that, I either then go and create some more work, and I go, oh, good, I have created some work, and that tends to go somewhere. Or something enjoyable lands in the lap, and you go, oh, fuck, all right. So, you know, that's it. It's the life, it's the life of an alternative artist, like, and so when people ask, what is it I want? It's like, oh, well, the same, but more.
Mm.
Right. Like, and that's the answer. You want to, like, we go into bigger theaters, and we have sometimes, and we do all of this, but it's like, Yeah, like no, actually, this would be a good summary. This was a very nice surprise. So when I was doing my stand-up tour last year,
Mhm.
I took to saying to people, I was going, well, this is very welcome to the acoustic side project, because that's what I felt a bit like. I felt a bit like, I was the bassist in a successful band and I was just doing some acoustic gigs, right? And people were coming and there was a guy, I don't normally like to mention people who were a bit rude offhand afterwards, but he was fun. This guy ran up after the show in Oxford and went, "Oh, hey, are you still doing Darkroom?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, thank God, a rare miss," and then left, which immediately endeared him to me. I was like, "Oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah." But also, I really liked how invested he was because I was like, you could have known that by looking at my website anytime ever or Googling me at all, like, right. But off he went. But this was quite cute. So I got the tour money, right? I got the tour money
Mhm.
for that tour, and it went for a while. That tour it went better part of 2 months, right?
Mhm.
And then yesterday I got my tour money from the darkroom, and yeah, we don't really need to do another stand-up tour. No, that'd be fine. No, yes, yes, no, that seems fine. Yes, that kind of I think neatly sums up how I felt about the thing. Where I went, right, that really drives that home. But the stand-up tour will go back out in 2027, right?
Mhm.
And I've got a new. I've actually got. Fuck God. I got three new shows this year in various places to do. So it's all creative and interesting and good. But yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I'm so glad that this like Darkroom as a thing that I, threw myself into and it's so nice to have a thing that people enjoy.
Mm.
It's a lovely, lovely feeling. And also, touch wood, because I actually, like this is the arts. I'm glad, like, I genuinely, having made a joke about getting a large check, I was like, large for me. Like let's not do the maths as to whether or not like a fucking underattended butcher shop might not earn infinitely more than I do. And I'm touching because I'm like, yes, that's a good joke, John. However, your lifestyle is predicated on the idea that check will happen again. So settle down. Come now, come now. Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, fuck it. Shall I just go into plugging the other things?
Yes, go for it.
All right. So this is good because this is also a chance to remember I've got to fucking do them. Um, so I've got a show called The Gaming Special, that'll be previewing in a bunch of places. Yeah, that'll be at the UK Games Expo in a work in progress, and then hopefully something finished will be available for Epic Land in Kettering in October. It better be fucking finished because they booked me for two halves. So like they actually require 90 minutes of entertainment, and they do tend to pay. So I hate to not provide, because I've been trying for years. Like I just wanted to have like a stand-up special
Mm.
about gaming that just looked like stand up and sounded like stand up. And so I'll write a 45-minute thing. We'll
Mhm.
do that. And then, we'll just get pissed in the second half and just fuck around with the crowd. That'll be a nice thing to do because it's just creating that 45-minute document
Mm.
to go and be filmed somewhere and then just chop that up for YouTube and away we go.
Yeah.
So I've got that on the go. Um, my agents went, oh, hey, so, we got Darkroom down at Fringe at Edinburgh. You want to do another show? You've been offered this space. I've been offered the Counting House Ballroom again at 7, which is a beautiful slot and a beautiful room.
Mhm.
Sure, sure. And I'm like, good. I could go and really run in the gaming special for the course of a month. I was like, no, no, not a world in which I'm doing that. I'm not going to go to the Edinburgh Fringe standing around like trying out stuff, right? Day in, day out to people who'd actually prefer to be entertained. So the show going down there is just called John Robertson Excitable Boy because I was sitting around the house with my girlfriend and I went, oh, fuck, what's the title? And she likes, I've got a Warren Zevon tattoo on my leg, which says, well, he's just an excitable boy. So I went, all right. excitable boy. So that'll be improv, with the crowd. I'll knock together some dirty ukulele songs and come up come up with some other things because that'll be the third year that we've done improv stand up in that room. And so I'll have to add some new things because I can't keep noticing the chandeliers. Like one of the buggers of, if you're going to be sort of obsessed with noticing what's in a place and in the room, it's like, yes, well, if it's the same room, like you may want to change some things. So we've got that one going.
Mhm.
And then the other thing, and this was quite nice. An independent, well, we've just had a lot of chats about this over the years, but an independent gaming festival got in touch, and they're really indie, like really, they're sort of looking for alternative games and stuff, and and they went, oh, would you perhaps like? It was when they said, would you like to come and present some new work? And and I haven't heard the phrase present new work since the last time I applied to an arts council. You know what I mean? Like that has a real sense of, yes, a touch of the cabaret is looming towards this conversation. So we had a chat, and it seemed like a good excuse. So I've got 2 nights in June where I'll be going and road testing a game I've been writing called You Are Pagliacci, which is it's the Pagliacci joke,
Yeah.
the Pagliacci joke.
Mhm.
All right, I'll and imagine if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know it, look, it's fine. We'll just do this like crowd work. Hey, do you guys know this thing? You've said that you do. I'll repeat what it is anyway,
Yeah.
just for kind of yeah. So the Pagliacci joke: man goes to the doctor, says he's tired, depressed, life has no meaning. Doctor says, I've got a great cure. The circus is in town. You should go see the great clown Pagliacci. He'll cheer you up. The man cries, but doctor, I am Pagliacci, right? I might have become moderately obsessed with that in late 2019 and for a fair amount of lockdown, because a lot of people were writing very, very funny variants of it. And I don't know if any of mine ever sort of attained the heights of some of them, but I definitely wrote a lot of them. Right. And then I thought, well, what can I do with it? I was like, oh, I could make this a game in which on the last day of his life, a suicidal clown just wants to go to the doctor and tell his fucking joke. So and I've been tinkering with this for years. And I don't think it should be a live show. I don't think it's something that I would like. I think it'll be a very nice thing if I'm like presenting it as me and I'm narrating the text and I'm doing all of this, but it's not something that I would like to do where I'm standing around being a clown. I feel like by its nature, I don't know, in the hands of a less singular performer, perhaps it could be some sort of beautiful thing. Like someone like Elf Lyons or Gary Starr could probably find in the performance a real humanity to it. Whereas I'm quite happy with this to let the writing display the humanity of it and just kind of let it go and eventually release it as a game. But yeah, the thing that tickles me about it is we developed a rival for the great clown Pagliacci, which is the adequate clown Ronaldo. And so like what's happening is like the main catchphrase of it is just like Pagliacci will turn on the television and then he'll find Ronaldo will be there. And Ronaldo will be saying on like Graham Norton or something. And then I said, but doctor, I am the adequate clown Ronaldo. And you've just got this going, Ronaldo! So that I think that's good. Also, there's like when I've road tested it on Twitch and stuff, there's just so much it's informed by a fair amount of mental health trauma. So it's like we had an audience member who went, oh John, I didn't really, I've had substance abuse issues, so I felt a little bit triggered by the guy constantly eating painkillers. And I had to go, oh no, don't worry, I did that. And they went, ah, good. You know, they were like, ah, yes, yes, yes. You know, this has been informed. It was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The codeine months. Oh, what a time. You know, God, I used to God, it was dreadful. I'd be lying in bed and I'd take codeine, and what I liked about it was it made my my feet numb. Right. And then it turned out it wasn't the fucking codeine. It's just if I put one foot over the other, it cuts off the blood. I could have done that without fucking, you know, depressing myself deeply and, you know, and injuring my liver, but nevertheless, right. Yeah. So there's that. So I'm very excited by all three of those things. Yeah. Should be fun. Should be something anyway.
So, on the subject of people Googling you,
oh yeah,
how can they go about finding out all about you and all your fine upcoming works?
Ah, marvelous. Well, John Robertson, comedian, will do it. And enjoy that terrible photo that bloke's put on Wikipedia. Good God. You can really tell in my eyes. I think I'm nailing that shot. Fucking dreadful. But yeah. You can find me at thejohnrobertson.com. That's got a link to all of my socials. Please enjoy my videos on TikTok and Instagram. They go around quite a lot at the moment, which is a very nice feeling. There's the YouTube. All the links are on the website. And yeah, just come have yourself a look, enjoy, and yeah, see people out on the road sometime. Yeah.
So then we have my final question, of course, in line with the title of the show. John, how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Certainly. Have you committed a sex offense? How about getting a podcast?
Hey.
That's yeah. That's not specifically aimed at you. As I said, as I said it, I was like, nah, you really should leave it as have you committed a sex offense, which is a good way of acknowledging the fact that not large swathes, but like every fucking scene, you know, predators fucking get in and use their power. And then unfortunately I thought of a few of them and I added podcasts. Oh well, that's yeah. So and as I said that, I was like, oh, don't say that while looking your friend in the eye. You know, Zoom call's ruined. Yeah. Or you know, or if there's a nicer way of saying it. Here we go. Well, not saying the point I just said, but if you want to, all right, you want to sum up comedy in a nutshell. Finally, the mentally ill can monetize. You know? There we go. Something like that.
John, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been a pleasure, of course, as it always is. Thank you.
No, thanks for that, mate. It was a pleasure.